The rain falls softly over the small church in Brooklyn, a gentle mist that seems to whisper secrets to the old stone walls. Inside, 300 guests sit in polished wooden pews, their faces turned toward the altar, where white roses cascade from iron archways and candles flicker in crystal holders. The organ plays a melody that has accompanied 1,000 brides before this day, and the air smells of lilies and anticipation. Evelyn Monroe stands behind the heavy oak doors, her fingers trembling against the silk of her wedding gown. She is 24 years old, with auburn hair pinned beneath a vintage lace veil that belonged to her grandmother. Her green eyes are bright with hope, with the kind of innocent faith that believes love can conquer anything. She has waited for this moment since she was a little girl, drawing wedding dresses in the margins of her school books. Her father, a retired firefighter with calloused hands and a heart softened by years of watching his daughter grow, stands beside her. He squeezes her arm gently. The music shifts, the doors begin to open, and Evelyn takes her first step into the church. 300 faces turn to look at her. She sees her mother crying already, dabbing at her eyes with the embroidered handkerchief. She sees her college roommate, her cousins from New Jersey, the elderly neighbors who watched her grow up on Sullivan Street. But her eyes seek only one face. The altar is empty. At first, her mind refuses to process what her eyes are seeing. She takes another step forward, then another, her white satin heels clicking against the stone floor in a rhythm that suddenly sounds too loud, too hollow. The organ continues playing, oblivious to the catastrophe unfolding in this sacred space. Where is Daniel? Daniel Marchetti, the man who proposed to her on the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset, who promised her a lifetime of laughter and morning coffee and children with her eyes and his dimples. Daniel, who held her hand through her father's surgery, and who learned to make her grandmother's pasta recipe just to see her smile. The altar remains empty. A murmur ripples through the congregation, soft at first, then growing louder. Evelyn feels the weight of 300 stares pressing against her skin. Her bouquet of white roses trembles in her hands. The best man, Daniel's childhood friend Tommy, emerges from a side door. His face is pale, his tie loosened, his eyes unable to meet hers. He walks toward her, slowly, each step seeming to take an eternity. He does not need to speak, she already knows, but he speaks anyway, his voice barely above a whisper that somehow carries through the entire church. Daniel is gone. The words do not make sense. Gone where? To fix his cufflinks? To calm his nerves? To get a breath of fresh air before the biggest moment of his life? Tommy holds out a folded piece of paper. His hand shakes. Evelyn takes it without thinking, without understanding that this single sheet will shatter everything she believed about love, about trust, about the man she was supposed to spend her life with. The note is brief. The handwriting is unmistakably Daniel's, those same letters that once wrote her love poems and signed birthday cards and traced the words forever and always on the steam of her bathroom mirror. The note says only this: I cannot do this. I am sorry. Do not look for me. 300 people watch as Evelyn Monroe's world collapses. She does not scream. She does not cry. She does not fall to her knees in the dramatic fashion of heartbreak portrayed in movies. Instead, she stands perfectly still, as if her body has forgotten how to move, as if her heart has forgotten how to beat. Her mother rushes toward her. Her father's face contorts with a fury that speaks of protective instincts and broken promises. The guests erupt into chaos, whispers becoming exclamations, questions flying through the air like startled birds. But Evelyn hears none of it. She turns very slowly and walks back toward the doors through which she entered. Her veil trails behind her like a ghost. Her bouquet hangs limply at her side, petals beginning to fall, leaving a trail of white across the stone floor. She walks out of the church. She walks down the steps. She walks into the rain. And then Evelyn Monroe does something that will define the next 5 years of her life. She keeps walking, past the waiting limousine with its white ribbons, past the catering vans, past the photographer who calls her name with concern in his voice. She walks until the church is a distant silhouette behind her, until her wedding gown is soaked through and clinging to her skin, until the rain has washed away her carefully applied makeup and left her face bare and raw and somehow more honest than it has been in months. She walks until she reaches the subway station at the corner of Atlantic Avenue. Still in her wedding dress, she descends the stairs. The fluorescent lights flicker. Overhead, a homeless man looks up from his cardboard bed and stares at her with something like understanding in his weathered eyes. A woman with grocery bags pauses mid-step, her mouth forming a question that never becomes sound. Evelyn swipes her Metro card. She pushes through the turnstile. She boards the first train that arrives, not caring where it goes, not caring about anything except putting distance between herself and the ruins of her carefully planned future. She rides the subway for hours. Manhattan, Queens, the Bronx, Brooklyn again. She watches the stations blur past like the chapters of a story she no longer recognizes. Her reflection in the dark window shows a stranger, a woman in a ruined wedding dress with mascara tracks down her cheeks and emptiness where hope used to live. Somewhere around midnight she gets off at Penn Station. She walks to the Amtrak counter. She buys a ticket for the first train leaving the city. It happens to be going to Chicago. Evelyn Monroe boards that train with nothing but her wedding dress, her identification, and the credit card she keeps tucked in her bra for emergencies. She leaves behind her phone, her apartment, her job at the publishing house, her carefully curated life. She leaves behind everything except the question that will haunt her for years to come. Why? The train pulls out of Penn Station at 2:47 in the morning. Evelyn watches New York City disappear into the darkness, the lights of the skyline growing, smaller and smaller until they vanish entirely. She does not know that somewhere in that same city, Daniel Marchetti is watching the same darkness from the window of a warehouse in Red Hook. She does not know that the man she loved has just made a choice that will transform him from a gentle accountant into something far more dangerous. She does not know that the path he is now walking will eventually lead him back to her, but as a completely different person. She knows only that her heart is broken, that her future has crumbled, and that she must somehow find a way to rebuild herself from the ashes of this devastation. The train carries her westward through the night. Behind her, the church still stands in the Brooklyn rain, now empty of guests, empty of flowers, empty of everything except the echo of a love story that ended before it truly began. 5 years will pass. 5 years of silence, 5 years of wondering, 5 years of a woman learning to stand on her own, and a man descending into a world of shadows. And then, when Evelyn Monroe has finally convinced herself that the past is behind her, when she has built a new life in a new city with a new name and a new purpose, the man who destroyed her will return. But he will not return as Daniel Marchetti, the accountant who made her laugh and held her hand and promised her forever. He will return as something else entirely. He will return as the Mafia boss. Check if you are already subscribed to this channel. If you are not, now is the moment to join this journey. Every story here is crafted to touch your heart, to make you feel, to remind you that even the most broken paths can lead to unexpected destinations. Subscribe now and become part of a community that believes in the power of stories to transform and heal. 5 years have passed since that rainy night in Brooklyn. The woman who now calls herself Elena Parker bears little resemblance to the heartbroken bride who boarded a train to Chicago with nothing but her wedding dress and her shattered dreams. Her auburn hair is shorter now, cut to her shoulders in a practical style that suits her busy life. Her green eyes still hold depth, but the naive hope that once shimmered there has been replaced by something stronger, something forged in the fires of survival. She lives in a modest apartment in Lincoln Park, a third-floor walk-up with exposed brick walls and windows that overlook a quiet, tree-lined street. The space is small, but filled with light, decorated with second-hand furniture and bookshelves that overflow with novels. On her kitchen counter sits a collection of herbs growing in mismatched pots, and on her walls hang photographs of Chicago landmarks, Lake Michigan sunsets, and the friends who have become her chosen family. Eleanor works as the assistant manager at a community center on the near West Side. She spends her days organizing after-school programs for underprivileged children, coordinating job training workshops for adults seeking second chances, and running support groups for people trying to rebuild their lives after hardship. The work does not pay much, but it fills her with purpose. Every child who learns to read under her guidance, every adult who finds employment through her programs, Every person who walks through those doors feeling lost and leaves feeling found. These are the moments that remind her why she chose to keep living when everything fell apart. Her colleagues adore her. The children call her Miss Elena and bring her drawings of rainbows and puppies. The elderly volunteers treat her like a granddaughter, always trying to set her up with their nephews and neighbors. She has built something beautiful here, something real, something entirely her own. No one in Chicago knows about Evelyn Monroe. No one knows about the wedding dress she left in a donation bin at a shelter in Ohio. No one knows about the months she spent sleeping in cheap motels, working odd jobs, trying to outrun the ghost of a man who abandoned her at the altar. No one knows about the night she sat on the shore of Lake Michigan and considered walking into the water and never coming back. That was 4 years ago. She does not think about that night anymore. She has learned that survival requires selective memory, that healing demands the ability to close certain doors and throw away the key. On this particular October morning, Elena arrives at the community center early, as she always does. The autumn air is crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and the distant promise of winter. She unlocks the front door, turns on the lights, and begins preparing for the day ahead. The center occupies a converted warehouse that the city rehabilitated a decade ago. High ceilings, large windows, an open floor plan that can be configured for different purposes. In the mornings, it hosts a breakfast program for seniors. In the afternoons, it transforms into a homework haven for children. In the evenings, it becomes a gathering place for support groups and community meetings. Elena loves every corner of this building. She is setting up chairs for the senior breakfast when her phone buzzes. A text from her best friend Sarah, a nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, who Elena met at a pottery class 3 years ago. Dinner tonight? That Italian place on Halsted. My treat. Elena smiles and types back a confirmation. She has learned to say yes to invitations, to open her heart to friendship even when the old fears whisper that everyone leaves eventually. The seniors begin arriving at 8 o'clock. Mr. Patterson, 92 years old and still sharper than most people half his age, immediately demands to know why Elena is not yet married to a nice young man who appreciates her. Mrs. Chen brings homemade dumplings that she insists Elena must eat immediately because she looks too thin. The Gonzalez sisters argue about whose turn it is to lead the morning stretching exercises. This is her family now. Not by blood, but by choice, which Elena has learned is often stronger. The morning passes in a blur of activity. Breakfast, conversation, a minor crisis when Mr. Patterson's hearing aid battery dies, a joyful moment when Mrs. Chen announces that her grandson has been accepted to medical school. Elena moves through it all with practiced ease, her smile genuine, her care authentic. At noon, the afternoon shift arrives. Young volunteers from the local universities, eager to add community service to their resumes, but often surprised to find that they genuinely enjoy the work. Elena delegates tasks, answers questions, solves problems. It is during the after-school rush, when 37 children ranging from 6 to 14 years old flood through the doors, that Elena's carefully constructed world begins to crack. She is helping a 7-year-old named Marcus with his spelling homework when the center's director, a formidable woman named Patricia Reynolds, approaches. Her desk. Patricia's face is strange, not quite worried but not quite calm either, anticipatory perhaps, as if she is about to deliver news that she herself does not fully understand. "Eleanor," she says, "there is someone here to see you, a man. He says he is from the Marchetti Foundation." The name hits Elena like a physical blow. Marchetti. For a moment, she cannot breathe. For a moment, she is 24 years old again, standing in a church in Brooklyn, watching her dreams disintegrate. But that is impossible. Marchetti is not an uncommon name. There must be hundreds of Marchetti families in Chicago alone. This cannot be connected to Daniel. He is gone. He disappeared 5 years ago. He could be anywhere in the world. He could be dead. He is probably dead. She has told herself that so many times that she almost believes it. "I do not know anyone from any Marchetti Foundation," Elena says, and her voice sounds strange to her own ears, higher than usual, tight with something she refuses to name as fear. Patricia shrugs. "He specifically asked for you, said you would want to hear what he has to say. He mentioned something about a significant donation to our programs. Money, of course. Everything in this world eventually comes down to money. The community center operates on a shoestring budget, constantly scrambling for grants and donations and fundraising events that never quite raise enough. A significant donation could mean new computers for the children, expanded programs, maybe even that rooftop garden they have been dreaming about for years. Elena tells herself that this is why she agrees to meet with the man. For the center, for the children, for the seniors who depend on their breakfast program. She tells herself it has nothing to do with the name that still haunts her dreams. She walks to the front entrance, where a man in an expensive suit waits near the door. He is perhaps 60 years old, with silver hair and the kind of face that suggests he has seen much of the world and found most of it wanting. He holds a leather briefcase and wears a gold watch that probably costs more than Elena earns in a year. "Miss Parker," he says, and his voice is smooth, cultured, carefully neutral. "Thank you for seeing me. My name is Robert Castellano. I represent the Marchetti Foundation." "I am not familiar with that organization," Elena replies, and she is proud of how steady her voice sounds. "We are relatively new," the man says, "based in New York recently, expanding our philanthropic activities to Chicago. We have heard impressive things about the work being done here at the community center. Mr. Marchetti himself has taken a personal interest." Elena's heart stops. "Mr. Marchetti?" Robert Castellano's expression does not change, but something flickers in his eyes. Something that might be assessment, might be curiosity, might be the satisfaction of a trap successfully sprung. "Yes," he says. "Daniel Marchetti. I believe you may have known him once." Before his current success, the world tilts. Elena grips the edge of the reception desk to steady herself. Her knuckles turn white. Her breath comes in short, shallow gasps that she desperately tries to control. Daniel is alive. Daniel is not just alive. Daniel has a foundation. Daniel has money. Daniel has sent this man to find her, which means Daniel knows where she is, which means her 5 years of hiding, of running, of becoming someone new, have all been for nothing. What does he want? She asks, and her voice is barely a whisper. "He wants to meet with you," Robert Castellano replies. "Tomorrow evening. A car will pick you up at 7 o'clock, and if I refuse..." The man smiles, but there is no warmth in it. "Mr. Marchetti was quite insistent. He said to tell you that he has never forgotten that night in Brooklyn. He said to tell you that he has spent 5 years preparing for this moment. He said to tell you that he owes you an explanation." Elena wants to scream. She wants to cry. She wants to run again, as far and as fast as her legs can carry her. But she is not 24 years old anymore. She is not the naive girl who believed in fairy tales and forever and the goodness of men who make promises they cannot keep. She is Elena Parker now, and Elena Parker does not run. "Fine," she says, and her voice is ice. "Tell Mr. Marchetti that I will meet with him. But he should not expect gratitude or forgiveness. He should expect only truth." Robert Castellano nods, apparently, unsurprised by her response. "Until tomorrow, then, Miss Parker. 7 o'clock, dress formally. Mr. Marchetti has planned something special." He turns and walks out of the community center without another word. Eleanor stands frozen, staring at the door through which he disappeared, trying to process what has just happened. Daniel is alive. Daniel has found her. And tomorrow, after 5 years of silence, she will finally learn why he left her standing alone in that church. She does not know yet that the answer will be more complicated, more dangerous and more devastating than anything she could possibly imagine. The car arrives at precisely 7 o'clock. Elena has spent the entire day in a state of suspended animation, going through the motions of her work, while her mind races through every possible scenario. She cancelled dinner with Sarah, claiming a sudden migraine. She barely ate. She barely slept. Now she stands in front of her bathroom mirror, wearing a simple black dress that she bought years ago for a colleague's funeral, and has worn exactly twice since. Her auburn hair is pinned up, exposing the slender column of her neck. She wears no jewelry, except for a pair of small pearl earrings that belong to her mother. She looks, she thinks, like a woman attending her own execution. The black sedan waiting outside her building is not a limousine, but it might as well be. The windows are tinted so dark she cannot see inside. The driver, a young man with sharp eyes and an earpiece, holds the door open without speaking. Elena gets in. The interior smells of leather and something else, something subtle and familiar. Cedar, perhaps, or sandalwood. A scent that triggers memories she has spent 5 years trying to bury. The drive takes 45 minutes, through the city and then beyond it, into the wealthy suburbs that line the North Shore. Eleanor watches the scenery change from urban density to manicured lawns and gated estates. The houses grow larger, more imposing, more clearly designed to announce that their occupants exist in a different world than ordinary people. Finally, the car turns onto a private road that winds through a forest of old oak trees. At the end of the road stands a mansion. It is not the largest house Eleanor has ever seen, but it is the most beautiful. Georgian architecture, red brick and white columns, symmetrical windows glowing with warm light. The grounds are immaculate, the gardens carefully tended even in October, the circular driveway centered around a fountain that sparkles under strategically placed lights. This is what Daniel has become. The driver opens her door. Elena steps out, her heels crunching on the gravel, her heart pounding so loudly she is certain the entire household must hear it. The front doors open before she reaches them, and there he is. 5 years have transformed Daniel Marchetti almost beyond recognition. The gentle accountant she once loved is gone, replaced by something harder, sharper, more dangerous. He is dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that emphasizes his broad shoulders and lean frame. His dark hair is shorter, touched with silver at the temples. His jaw is more defined, his posture more commanding. But his eyes are the same deep brown that she remembers, and when they meet hers, something flickers in their depths. Something that might be pain, might be longing, might be the ghost of the love they once shared. "Evelyn," he says, and his voice is deeper, now rougher, as if he has spent the last 5 years shouting into the wind. "That is not my name anymore," she replies, and she is proud of how cold she sounds, how composed, how utterly unlike the girl who cried herself to sleep for months after he disappeared. "No," he agrees. "I suppose it is not. Please, come inside. We have much to discuss." She follows him into the mansion, through a grand foyer with marble floors and a sweeping staircase, past oil paintings and antique furniture and fresh flowers in crystal vases. Everything screams of wealth, of power, of a life so far removed from the modest apartment she left behind that it might as well be another planet. He leads her to a library, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace crackling with flames, 2 leather armchairs positioned for intimate conversation. On a small table between the chairs sits a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Please sit," Daniel says, "and let me explain." Elena does not sit. She stands near the fireplace, her arms crossed over her chest, her eyes never leaving his face. "Explain what?" she asks. "Explain why you left me standing in a church in front of 300 people? Explain why you disappeared without a word for 5 years? Explain why you have apparently become wealthy enough to own mansions and foundations, while I spent years trying to put my life back together?" Daniel's jaw tightens. "Yes," he says quietly. "All of that. Then start talking." He moves to the window, looking out at the darkness, beyond the glass. When he speaks, his voice is distant, as if he is accessing memories stored in a locked vault. "The night before our wedding," he begins, "I received a visitor, a man I had never seen before. He came to my apartment and told me that everything I believed about my family was a lie." Elena says nothing. She waits. "My father," Daniel continues, "was not an insurance salesman from Queens. He was Marco Marchetti, one of the most powerful figures in the New York underworld. He left that life when I was born, changed his name, moved to the suburbs, tried to raise me without the shadow of his past. He died when I was 12, and my mother never told me the truth." The fire crackles, shadows dance across the walls. But the organization he left behind did not forget about him, or about me. "The night before our wedding, they came to collect what they believed they were owed. The son of Marco Marchetti, heir to an empire he never knew existed." "You are telling me," Eleanor says slowly, That you left me at the altar because of organized crime. I left you at the altar to save your life. The words hang in the air between them. They gave me a choice, Daniel says, and now he turns to face her, his eyes burning with something she cannot name. Marry you and watch you become a target. Watch them use you to control me. Watch them destroy everything you are, everything you could become. Or walk away, disappear. Let you believe I was a coward rather than know the truth. Let you hate me rather than put you in danger. Elena's composure cracks. That was not your choice to make. I know, you should have told me. You should have given me the option to decide for myself. I know. 5 years, Daniel. 5 years I spent wondering what I did wrong. What was so broken in me that the man I loved could not bear to marry me? Daniel crosses the room in 3 strides. He stands before her now, close enough that she can smell his cologne, close enough that she can see the pain etched into every line of his face. Nothing was broken in you, he says. Nothing. You were perfect. You were everything. And that is exactly why I had to protect you, even if it meant destroying us both. The moment stretches between them, heavy with 5 years of silence, 5 years of grief, 5 years of questions without answers. If you are telling me the truth, Elena finally says, then what changed? Why find me now? Why reveal yourself after all this time? Daniel steps back. He walks to the desk in the corner and picks up a folder. He hands it to her. Because the men who threatened you 5 years ago are gone, he says. Because I have spent every day since I left that church building something powerful enough to protect you. Because I have become what they wanted me to become, but on my own terms. And because I have finally created a world where I can offer you safety instead of danger. Elena opens the folder. Inside are photographs, documents, financial statements, evidence of a business empire that spans legitimate enterprises and operates in the shadows of power. Restaurants, real estate, import companies, a web of influence that reaches into every corner of the city. You became a mafia boss, she says flatly. I became what I needed to become, Daniel replies. To keep you safe. To keep the promise I made you even if you never knew I was making it. Elena closes the folder. Her hands are trembling now, but not from fear. From anger, perhaps. Or from something else entirely. Something she is. Not ready to examine too closely. This is the moment I need you to do something. I need you to leave a comment on this video. Right now, pause and type these words. If love had to choose between presence and protection, what would you choose? Leave that comment. Let me know your answer. This story is not just mine to tell, it belongs to everyone who has ever been asked to sacrifice love for something greater. 3 weeks have passed since Elena learned the truth about Daniel Marchetti. 3 weeks of sleepless nights. 3 weeks of questions that lead only to more questions. 3 weeks of trying to reconcile the gentle man who proposed to her on the Brooklyn Bridge with the powerful figure who now controls an empire built on shadows. She has not agreed to anything. She has not forgiven him. She has not decided what any of this means for her carefully constructed life. But she has not walked away either. They meet 3 times during those 3 weeks. Once at his mansion, where they sit in the library and talk for hours, their conversation ranging from their shared past to his current operations to her work at the community center. Once at a restaurant he owns downtown, where they are seated in a private room and she watches how his employees defer to him, how his mere presence commands respect. Once at her apartment, where he appears at her door unannounced, holding bags of groceries and an apology for interrupting her evening. She should not have let him in that night. She knows this. But she did, and they cooked dinner together in her tiny kitchen, and for a few hours it felt almost normal, almost like the life they might have had if everything had been different. Almost. The 4th time they meet, everything changes. It is a Tuesday evening in early November. Elena is walking home from the community center, bundled against the cold, her mind occupied with budget spreadsheets and grant applications. She does not notice the black car idling at the corner. She does not notice the men watching her from across the street. She notices nothing until a hand closes around her arm. "Miss Parker," a voice says, and it is not friendly. Mr. Marchetti would like a word. This is not one of Daniel's men. This she knows immediately, instinctively, with a certainty that settles in her bones. Daniel's people are always polite, always professional, always careful to make her feel comfortable. This man makes her feel afraid. "I do not know any Mr. Marchetti," she says, trying to pull her arm free. The grip tightens. "Do not lie, Miss Parker. Or should I say Miss Monroe? We know exactly who you are. We know exactly who you belong to. I do not belong to anyone." The man smiles. It is not a pleasant expression. That is what you think. But you have become very important to some very important people. And those people have questions they would like answered. He begins pulling her toward the waiting car. Elena fights. She screams. She kicks. She bites the hand that clamps over her mouth. But these men are professionals, and she is a social worker who has never been in a physical confrontation in her life. Within seconds, they have her in the back of the car, her hands bound with plastic ties, a cloth pressed over her face that smells of something chemical and sweet. The world goes dark. When Elena wakes, she is in a warehouse. The ceiling is high, industrial, crisscrossed with metal beams and hanging lights. The floor is concrete, stained, and cold. She is sitting in a metal chair, her wrists still bound, her head pounding from whatever they used to render her unconscious. 3 men stand before her. 2 she does not recognize, large and menacing, their faces blank with professional detachment. The 3rd is older, perhaps 50, with a receding hairline and eyes that remind her of a snake. "Miss Monroe," the older man says, "how delightful to finally meet you. I have heard so much about you." "Who are you?" Elena demands. "What do you want?" "My name is Victor Rossi. I am an old colleague of your boyfriend's family. And what I want is very simple. I want Daniel Marchetti to understand that there are consequences for his ambitions." "I do not know what you are talking about." Victor Rossi laughs softly. "Of course you do. Daniel Marchetti has spent the last 5 years building an empire. He has taken territory that belonged to others. He has consolidated power in ways that threaten the established order. And worst of all, he has done it, while claiming to operate outside the traditional rules." Elena says nothing. "We tried to control him 5 years ago," Rossi continues. "We thought that threatening the woman he loved would be enough to bring him into the fold. Instead, he abandoned you and went his own way, built something entirely independent, made himself untouchable." She realizes now the full horror of what happened 5 years ago. Daniel did not just leave her to protect her. He left her because these men threatened to destroy her if he did not comply with their demands. And when he refused to become their puppet, he chose a different path entirely. "But now," Rossi says, "now you have returned to each other. Now he has a weakness again. And weaknesses can be exploited." "He will not negotiate for me," Elena says. "We are not together. He left me 5 years ago. Whatever feelings existed between us are gone." "You do not believe that," Rossi replies, "and neither does he. We have been watching you both for weeks. We see how he looks at you. We see how you look at him. Whatever happened in the past, there is something very much alive in the present." He nods to one of the large men, who produces a phone and begins filming. "You are going to send Mr. Marchetti a message," Rossi says. "You are going to tell him that we have something he values, and you are going to tell him that if he wants to see you alive again, he will meet with us, alone, unarmed, tomorrow at midnight." Elena's heart is pounding, but she forces herself to remain calm. She thinks of the children at the community center who look to her for stability. She thinks of the seniors who depend on her strength. She thinks of all the people she has helped rebuild their lives after hardship. If they could be brave, so can she. And if Daniel Marchetti truly loves her, if everything he told her was true, then she has to trust that he will find a way to save them both. The man points the phone at her face. She speaks. "Daniel, it is Eleanor. Some men have taken me. They want you to meet with them tomorrow at midnight. They say they will tell you the location. They say to come alone." She pauses. The men expect her to plead, to cry, to beg for her life. Instead, she looks directly into the camera and adds something the men do not expect. "But Daniel, listen to me. Do not come. Whatever they want, it is not worth your life. These men are using me to get to you. Do not let them win. Stay away. Stay safe. I survived losing you once. I can survive it again. Rossi's face contorts with anger. He signals to his men and one of them strikes her across the face. The world spins. Pain explodes across her cheek. But Elena does not regret her words. She has given Daniel a choice, just as he once chose for her. He can walk away. He can protect himself. He can let her go. Or he can come for her. She knows, deep in her bones, which choice he will make. And she finds that despite everything, despite 5 years of anger and grief, and carefully constructed walls, around her heart she wouldn't want him to choose differently. Daniel Marchetti receives the video at 9:43 in the evening. He is in his study, reviewing reports from his various operations, when Robert Castellano enters without knocking. The older man's face is grave, his movements urgent. "Sir," he says, "you need to see this." Daniel watches the video once, then again, then a third time, his eyes fixed on Elena's face, on the way she speaks those final words with such fierce determination. "Do not come. Stay away. Stay safe." She is trying to protect him. Even now, even bound and captive and facing men who would not hesitate to end her life, she is thinking of him. He has never loved her more. "Who sent this?" Daniel asks, and his voice is ice. "The message came through back channels," Castellano replies. "Victor Rossi's people." Rossi. The name lands like a stone in still water. Victor Rossi is old guard, a remnant of the organizations that tried to claim Daniel 5 years. Hego. He has been a thorn in Daniel's side ever since, always probing, always testing, always looking for a weakness to exploit. Now he has found one. "They want you to meet them alone," Castellano says. "Tomorrow at midnight, they will send the location." Daniel stands. He moves to the window, looking out at the darkness beyond. 5 years ago, he made a choice. He chose to protect Elena by walking away from her. He chose to build an empire powerful enough to keep her safe without her ever knowing the danger she faced. He thought he had succeeded. He was wrong. Now the danger has found her anyway. Now the choice is different. Now he must decide whether to risk everything, including his own life, to bring her home. It is not a difficult decision. "Prepare the team," Daniel says. "I want eyes on every property Rossi owns. I want to know where they are keeping her before midnight tomorrow." "Sir," Castellano says carefully, "if you go to that meeting alone, they will not let you leave alive. They do not want to negotiate. They want to eliminate you. I know." "Then why? Because I cannot leave her there," Daniel says, turning to face his most trusted advisor. "Because 5 years ago I made the wrong choice. I thought leaving her was protecting her. I was wrong. She has spent 5 years paying for my mistake. I will not let her pay any longer." Castellano is silent for a moment. Then he nods. "I will make the preparations," he says. "But sir, may I speak freely?" "Always. Miss Monroe is strong. I have watched her. She has built a life for herself, a purpose, a community that depends on her. She did not break when you left her. She will not break now. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that she is not the same woman you abandoned 5 years ago. She is something more." Daniel considers this. He remembers Elena as she was at 24, bright and hopeful, and so full of love that it seemed to radiate from her skin. He remembers the way she looked at him, as if he were the answer to every question she had ever asked. Then he thinks of the woman he saw 3 weeks ago, the woman who stood in his library and faced him with ice in her voice and steel in her spine. The woman who demanded truth and refused to accept anything less. The woman who has somehow transformed her pain into purpose, her abandonment into advocacy, her broken heart into a wellspring of compassion for others. She is not the same woman. She is better, and he will spend the rest of his life making sure she knows it. The next 20 hours are a blur of activity. Daniel's people work around the clock, analyzing data, tracking movements, leveraging every connection in their considerable network. By early afternoon, they have narrowed Elena's location to one of 3 warehouses on the south side. By early evening, they have confirmed it. She is being held in an industrial building near the old stockyards. 6 guards outside, at least 8 inside, including Rossi himself. They are expecting Daniel to come to the midnight meeting, where he will walk into a trap designed to destroy both him and any hope of rescuing Elena. Daniel has no intention of walking into that trap. Instead, at 11:15, while Rossi's men are finalizing preparations for the meeting, Daniel's team moves. The operation is surgical, precise, efficient. Within 12 minutes, the guards outside are neutralized. Within 18 minutes, the team is inside the building. Within 23 minutes, they have secured every room except the central warehouse space where Elena is being held. Daniel enters alone. Victor Rossi stands in the center of the space, surrounded by his remaining men. Elena sits in the same metal chair, her face bruised, her hands still bound, but her eyes clear and focused. When she sees Daniel, something shifts in her expression. Not relief, not fear, but something deeper. Recognition, understanding, the knowledge that he came for her, just as she knew he would. "Marchetti," Rossi says, and there is something like surprise in his voice. "You were not supposed to be here yet. I changed the schedule," Daniel replies. He walks forward slowly, his hands visible at his sides. "I hope you do not mind." "You should not have come," Rossi says. "You should have accepted the inevitable. Now you will both die here." "No," Daniel says quietly. "I do not think we will." He gives a signal. In the rafters above, positioned in the shadows throughout the building, Daniel's people reveal themselves. The sound of dozens of weapons being trained on Rossi's men fills the warehouse. Rossi's face goes pale. "Here is what is going to happen," Daniel says, and his voice carries the weight of absolute authority. "You are going to release Elena. You are going to leave Chicago. You are going to make sure that everyone in your organization knows that she is under my protection. And if anyone ever threatens her again, if anyone so much as looks at her wrong, I will burn your entire world to the ground." "You cannot do this," Rossi sputters. "There are rules, there are protocols." "I am rewriting the rules," Daniel replies. "That is what I have been doing for 5 years, building something strong enough to protect the people I love, strong enough to change the way things work in this world. You should have realized that before you touched her." He walks past Rossi, past the armed men, past everything that stands between him and Elena. He kneels before her chair and gently, carefully, cuts the plastic ties binding her wrists. "I came," he says softly. "I told you not to," she replies, but there are tears in her eyes now, tears she can no longer hold back. "I know. You could have been killed. I know. Why?" "Because you are worth dying for," Daniel says simply. "Because you have always been worth dying for. Because 5 years ago I made the worst mistake of my life, and I have spent every day since trying to become the man who deserves to stand beside you. I am not sure I will ever be that man, but I will. Never stop trying." Elena reaches out and touches his face. Her fingers are cold, trembling, but her gaze is steady. "I do not know if I can forgive you," she says. "I do not know if I can trust you. I do not know if any of this is real." "I know," Daniel says, "and I will wait as long as it takes for you to decide. But Elena, I need you to know something. I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day. Everything I have built, everything I have become, it was all for you. Even when you did not know I existed, even when you thought I had forgotten you, you were the reason I kept going. You were the reason for everything." Behind them, Rossi is being escorted out by Daniel's men. The warehouse is being cleared. The danger is passing. But in this moment, none of that matters. In this moment, there is only Daniel and Elena, two people separated by 5 years of silence, finally finding their way back to each other. 6 months later, spring has arrived in Chicago, and the EIJ city is blooming. Elena stands at the window of her office at the community center, watching the children play in the new garden that was installed last month. The Marchetti Foundation's donation made it possible, transforming a barren concrete courtyard into a green oasis filled with flowers and vegetables and hope. She has not changed her name. She is still Elena Parker, still the assistant manager who arrives early and stays late, still the woman who believes in the power of second chances. But everything else is different. Daniel is in her life now, truly in her life, not as the mysterious figure from her past, not as the powerful Mafia boss, but as the man who brings her coffee every morning and sits with the seniors during breakfast and teaches the children chess on Saturday afternoons. The transition has not been easy. There are still nights when Elena wakes from nightmares about the warehouse, about Victor Rossi's cold eyes, about what might have happened if Daniel had arrived. Even 5 minutes later, There are still moments when the old anger surfaces, when she remembers standing alone in that church and wonders how she could possibly trust someone who caused her such pain. But then Daniel does something small and ordinary. He makes her laugh. He remembers something she mentioned weeks ago. He looks at her with such transparent devotion that she cannot doubt his feelings, and slowly, carefully, she learns to trust again. They have not defined what they are. They are not engaged. They are not officially dating. They are simply two people who have found their way back to each other after a journey that nearly destroyed them both. It is enough. On this particular spring morning, Daniel arrives at the community center with a familiar black sedan. But instead of coming inside, he waits by the car, his posture suggesting something important. Elena goes to him. "I want to show you something," he says. She gets in the car without asking questions. This is another thing she has learned to trust. The surprises Daniel brings into her life. They are never unwanted. They are always meaningful. The drive takes them out of the city, past the suburbs, into the countryside that lies beyond. After an hour, Daniel turns onto a private road that winds through rolling hills and old oak trees. At the end of the road stands a house. It is not a mansion. It is not grand or imposing or designed to announce wealth and power. It is a farmhouse, white clapboard with green shutters, surrounded by gardens and orchards and a barn that has been converted into a studio space. "What is this place?" Elena asks. Daniel takes her hand. "This is what I want to show you," he says. "This is what I have been building. Not the empire, not the organization. This." He leads her through the house, room by room. A kitchen with large windows overlooking the garden. A living room with a fireplace and built-in bookshelves. Bedrooms with slanted ceilings and handmade quilts. A studio filled with art supplies and natural light. "I'm transitioning the organization," Daniel explains as they walk, "moving everything into legitimate businesses, real estate development, restaurant groups, import companies, nothing that operates in shadows, nothing that requires protection or violence or fear." Elena listens. "It will take years," Daniel continues. "There are people who depend on me, people I cannot simply abandon. But I am building something new, something clean, something I can be proud of." They stand now in the garden behind the house. Roses are blooming, birds are singing. The air smells of fresh earth and new growth. "This house," Daniel says, "is the first step. A place away from everything. A place where we can start over. A place that has no history, no complications, no ghosts." He turns to face her. "I am not asking you to marry me," he says. "I know I have not earned that right yet. I am not asking you to live here with me. I know you have a life in the city, people who depend on you, work that matters. What are you asking?" "I am asking for time," Daniel says. "Time to prove that I have changed. Time to show you that the man who left you at the altar is gone, and the man standing before you now will never leave you again. I am asking for the chance to build something with you, slowly, carefully, brick by brick." Elena looks at the garden, at the house, at the man who has spent 5 years becoming someone worthy of her love. She thinks of the girl she was at, 24, the one who believed in fairy tales and forever. She thinks of the woman she became, the one who learned that survival sometimes means walking away from everything you thought you wanted. And she thinks of the woman she is now, standing in a garden with the man who broke her heart, and then spent 5 years trying to put the pieces back together. "Yes," she says finally. "Yes, yes, I will give you time. Yes, I will give us a chance. Yes, I will try to build something new with you. But, Daniel, you need to understand something. Anything. I am not the same woman you left 5 years ago. I am stronger now, more independent. I will never again be someone who waits for a man to save her. I have learned to save myself." Daniel smiles, and it is the same smile she remembers from the Brooklyn Bridge, the one that made her believe in love for the first time. "I know," he says. "That is exactly what I love about you." He takes her hand. They walk through the garden together, past the roses, and the fruit trees and the promises of spring. Behind them, the farmhouse waits, patient and welcoming, ready to become whatever they choose to make it. 1 year later, The autumn sun filters through the stained glass windows of a small chapel in the countryside outside Chicago. The light creates patterns of gold and crimson on the wooden floors, dancing across the faces of the 40 guests who have gathered for this intimate ceremony. Elena stands at the altar, wearing a simple ivory dress that flows to her ankles. Her auburn hair is loose around her shoulders, crowned with a wreath of wildflowers. She holds a bouquet of roses and lavender from the garden she and Daniel have tended together for the past 12 months. She is not the same woman who stood in a Brooklyn church 7 years ago. She is not filled with naive hope or innocent faith. She is filled instead with something deeper, something earned through pain and growth and the slow, patient work of learning to trust again. Daniel stands across from her, his dark suit elegant but understated, his eyes never leaving her face. Behind him, the windows show rolling hills and ancient oak trees, the landscape they have come to call home. There is no officiant in the traditional sense. Instead, Patricia Reynolds, the director of the community center, stands between them. She obtained her officiant certification last month, specifically for this occasion. "We are gathered here," Patricia begins, "to witness the union of two people who have walked through fire to find each other. Two people who know that love is not always easy, that trust must be earned, that forever is not a destination, but a daily choice." The guests are a mix of Eleanor's friends from the community center, Daniel's legitimate business associates, and a handful of people from both of their pasts. Sarah is there, dabbing at her eyes. Mr. Patterson and Mrs. Chen sit together, holding hands. Robert Castellano stands near the back, his expression unreadable but his presence meaningful. "Daniel," Patricia says, "do you take Elena to be your wife? Do you promise to love her, to honor her, to choose her every single day, no matter what challenges you may face?" "I do," Daniel says, and his voice carries the weight of 7 years of longing, of sacrifice, of becoming the man he is today. "I promise to never walk away. I promise to always communicate. I promise to build a life with you that is worthy of everything you have been through to get here." "Elena," Patricia continues, "do you take Daniel to be your husband? Do you promise to love him, to forgive him, to trust him with the future you will create together?" Elena looks at the man before her. She sees the boy she fell in love with on the Brooklyn Bridge. She sees the man who broke her heart in a church in Brooklyn. She sees the leader who built an empire and then chose to transform it into something clean. She sees the partner who has spent the last year proving, day by day, that he will never leave her again. "I do," she says. "I promise to be brave. I promise to be honest. I promise to build something beautiful with you and to never forget the strength I found when I had to stand alone." Patricia smiles. "Then by the power vested in me by the state of Illinois, and more importantly by the community that loves you both, I pronounce you husband and wife." Daniel takes Elena in his arms and kisses her. The guests applaud. Sunlight pours through the windows, bathing them in gold. Later at the reception in the converted barn, Elena stands at the window and watches the sun set over the hills. Daniel comes to stand beside her, his hand finding hers. "Are you happy?" he asks. She considers the question seriously, as she considers all things now. "Yes," she says finally. "Not because everything is perfect, not because the past has been erased, but because I chose this. I chose you. And for the first time in my life, I know that I am exactly where I am supposed to be." Daniel pulls her close. "Thank you," he says into her hair. "For what? For giving me another chance, for believing I could change, for teaching me that love is not about saving someone. It is about standing beside them while they save themselves." Eleanor smiles against his chest. Through the window, the first stars are appearing in the darkening sky. In the barn behind them, their guests are laughing and dancing and celebrating this new beginning. Tomorrow, they will return to their lives. Eleanor will go back to the community center, to the children and seniors who have become her family. Daniel will continue the work of transforming his organization, building something legitimate and lasting. Together, they will tend their garden, fill their farmhouse with books and art and eventually children, create a future that honors both the pain they have survived and the joy they have found. But tonight, they are simply a man and a woman, who found their way back to each other against all odds. Tonight, they are home. If you have watched this far, it is because this story touched your heart. I want to know you. I want to see who really appreciates the stories we create together. Leave a comment right now saying, "I have watched this far," and let me know which moment in Elena and Daniel's journey moved you the most. And if this story made you feel something, if it reminded you that love can survive even the deepest betrayals, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story. Press the like button so the algorithm shares this with others who need to hear it. And share this video with someone you love, someone who believes in second chances, someone who knows that the best stories are the ones where broken people find their way home. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing in love. Until next time.